As many of you know, mental health has been front and center during the COVID-19 pandemic. You or someone you know could have been suffering and might still be suffering. If that's the case, this is the show for you. We have a Master of Psychology with us here today. She's a licensed professional counselor, as well as the Director of Counseling and Disability Resources here at Madonna University. Cora Garth is joining us in the studio. Welcome to Celebrate Michigan, the show produced on the campus of Madonna University. I'm Chris Benson. And Cora, thank you so much for joining us today. We're very glad you could be with us.
Thank you for having me.
So Cora, tell us, you're a counselor.
Yes.
How long have you been a counselor?
Since June 2012.
Okay.
Yes.
And was it something you always wanted to do? Is that the only job you've had, or was it something you transitioned into?
Well, it's something that I transitioned into. My undergrad was in accounting and computer programming. And when I finally said, you know, I am going to be a counselor, everyone was like, finally. So I was very excited. I thought, you know, I was going to have balloons, but they're like, it makes sense now why you always listen to everyone's stories and cried with people, strangers. So yes, it was something that I always wanted to do.
I have to go back to the accounting and computer science. So let me just, something there does not compute when we normally hear, you know, again, that's a very different, it seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong though, that seems like a very different field than counseling. Is it true, or do you see those two things as having overlap?
You know, they're very different, but I think that with me it was my heart, you know, my connection with people, and with accounting and computer programming, I realized that you were alone a lot, and a lot of the work for the roles that I served in was repetitive. And so I realized that once I was trying to bring, you know, others on my job together and make peace, it was again like, okay, you need to, I was going to go for the Masters of Accounting, you know, I wanted my MBA, but that just didn't work out no matter how hard I tried, and I surrendered and went to grad school at Ashland Theological Seminary, Detroit location in Southfield, and finished there. And I have been working as a professional counselor for a long time. And
wow.
So yeah, but two different fields, but so much of what I learned with the accounting and the computer programming benefits me in my role today as the director, and also my personal life as well. So
wow, it sounds like it was a calling as well.
It was a calling, I agree.
The path you went down, right?
Yes.
So, you know, our show is about mental health today, and it's everyone's talking about it. It seemed like for a long time, you know, I at least know when I was growing up, there might have been some stigma around it, and now it's being talked about, especially during the pandemic.
Yes.
So, for those who might not know, and when you're a licensed counselor, you mentioned that there's training, you know, going to school classes. Tell us a little bit about what is a counselor, what kind of background do they have, what kind of training might they have before you're actually meeting with people and assisting them?
Okay, but that's a very good question. And so what you have is the type of counseling you have, the goal is for you to learn how to sit with a person and not to be a technician, not someone that you're just there with your notebook, your pad, and you're just writing, you know, there is no connection, and it's very disconnected. So the goals of each class is to break down you and your barriers and to help you to connect with people. And you learn that through group counseling, through the various types of theories like Freud, and, you know, all of the different types of our famous psychiatrists that have come long before me. But you take all of what you've learned and you realize one thing: what's most important is I'm here with this person. It doesn't matter if I pass this test or not in my grad school or anything like that. What matters is this person feels like I'm listening to them, I'm connecting them, and I'm not judging them.
What a wonderful gift that must be to feel like you can connect with another person.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're very grateful for that gift.
Yes.
And I'm also wondering, are there times when you feel there have been challenging times where you, no matter what you've tried, you know, I'm sure you learn lots of techniques, but it's just, you just can't connect with someone.
Yeah.
And what do you do in those situations?
You know, when you do come to those moments when you're like, it's not working, and with the client, you have a talk with the client and you revisit your treatment plan. You check in, you say, you know, what's going on? Where are we? It seems like we're stuck here in this space and I want to help you. I want to connect. And that's what you always go back to. You go back to that connecting and keeping the client first. And even with your insecurities, or sometimes, you know, when you share a little bit about yourself, you know, you can say, I'm sharing this because I want to connect with you, you know, and to let them know that I'm not alone, that you're not alone. So basically, when I've had those issues, I just revisit our treatment goals, and I'll say, you know, this is what I'm getting. What are you getting? Or do you feel like we're, you know, kind of circling the same, or we're stuck, or we're not connecting? And normally, a lot of the times, it's where they may feel like, you know, oh, you're judging me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no. And then once they realize that I'm not judging you, you're free here. And then they come in and then they're free and they're grateful for those moments where we process through that together.
What do you think are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions people have about counseling that might prevent them from coming?
Yeah, that you're crazy. You know, yeah. I'm crazy, especially if you need medication. I tell them, you know, if you are having heart problems, you're not going to go to your general practitioner. You're going to go to a cardiologist. Well, if you have problems with your mind and your brain, you go and you speak with a licensed professional counselor or a psychologist or a social worker, whoever has the clinical training. And once you talk with them, if they determine that, you know, I think you need to have a conversation with a psychiatrist because I think we may need to revise our treatment plan. And you schedule an appointment with the psychiatrist, mm-hmm. and you encourage them that if they give you a little pill or two, you normalize that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just a tiny pill. It's not going to make you crazy. It's not mm-hmm. going to steal who you are, but it's to help to normalize your particular brain chemistry. Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate how you're walking that out, and it makes me think of something I heard about. You know, people say you brush your teeth every day, like yes. It's something you do every day. What do you do for your mental health every day? And we're going to talk about that. It's already time for a break. Wow. But when we get to our next segment, Cora's going to talk to us a little bit more about what we can do to take care of ourselves and how we can really be feeling more grounded. So stay tuned. We'll see you just in a few.
You realize that 49 million Americans struggle with hunger? That's 1 out of every 6 Americans.
These people are around us every day. They're our friends, they're our coworkers, their kids go to school with our kids.
Sometimes we're not even aware that they're struggling. This problem is closer than you think. So is the solution.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arts-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit americansforthearts.org.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education?
What are you gonna do?
Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else?
Or will you dare do something different?
Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher.
You got the skills, the smarts.
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget.
That'd be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess?
What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
Mom, can I have $1?
Yeah, it's right. I think my purse is upstairs on the bed.
It's not here.
Check the dining room.
No.
What about your sister's room?
It's not there either.
The upstairs closet? The downstairs closet?
There are no more closets.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Chris Benson, and today I'm here with Cora Garth, a licensed counselor and director of the Counseling and Disability Resources Center here at Madonna. And now we're going to talk about COVID. You know, obviously we're wearing masks. We're still in a time where the coronavirus is circulating. I imagine that COVID really changed the shape of your work.
Yes.
Tell us about that as a counselor.
Well, COVID, it changed because there was this uncertainty. There's this enemy that you can't see. How do you fight? How do you prepare? And there was a lot of fear. And then as you see on the television, you know, bodies and people are dying. And it was just, it shook your core. You know, some very strong people, they broke down, and the leaders of home, you know, the leaders in on leadership roles at their jobs, you know, they're like, I'm the one that people come to. What do I do? And it was a lot of grief. And so, and people didn't understand that if I, you know, just working from home and not going into the office, that provided grief. They were like, no, I didn't have anyone to pass or die, but you lost your normalcy. You lost your seeing, you know, that coworker walking past that cooler every day, you know, your water cooler. Your routine was changed. So it was very uneasy for a lot of people. A lot of anxiety increased, PTSD, because of some people experienced a lot of trauma. You know, the hospitals were where you couldn't go into the hospitals with your loved ones. So a lot of complex trauma that was, and complex grief, which means that there is more than one thing that is causing that grief or that trauma. And also it wasn't safe for some people to be at home. Like for some students, when they returned home, well, home is not a safe place, you know, and domestic violence increased. So those were the negatives and the struggles. And, you know, there were some who were able to, you know, bond closer with their family and to, you know, truly make lemonade with the lemon that we were all given. So, but unfortunately, it was a lot of fear and distrust. Who can I trust? What's going to happen? So, yeah.
And I imagine, I'm assuming, but tell me if I'm wrong, most counselors, probably prior to the pandemic, met like we're in, you know, in person, and you can see if I'm like sitting with my arms crossed, or, you know, if I'm, my body language. And I imagine counseling has a lot to do with that. How did the pandemic change that, and what do counselors do to respond?
Yes, and that's a very good question. And what I, personally for me, it was, I noticed that people, a lot of clients, they didn't want to be on Zoom. You know, they wanted to talk on the phone, and they were, you know, Zoomed out, but it was like, I really don't know if I want you in my home on this mentally professional level, or I'm not able to, you know, talk using Zoom. I have to communicate with my phone because I have to go out in the car, or I have to find a safe, secure place. So it was different, but you learn to listen to the tones and the words and what people were not saying, and the backgrounds as well. It's like, oh, well, is everything, are you safe? Are you okay? I hear, you know. And so we were invited and welcomed into their homes with them, which was where some you're just used to meeting or accustomed to meeting in the office. So we were really in their space, and that's not easy. No. It wasn't easy for them.
Well, and did you see the number of people that were interested in counseling? I'm curious about that, because like the pandemic hit, you know, March 2020. Did you see numbers go up right away? Was there a lull for a while? And how did you see kind of like the traffic, I guess, that that would come to counselors?
Another good question. Well, what I noticed was that at first people were, we would say those in a hospital setting, right? They were like, oh, okay, no, I'm okay. You know, I have loved ones that work in a hospital ER, and no, I'm okay, I'm fine. And then reality would set in, you know, if they were exposed to COVID or their friends were exposed, and then they realized that, oh wow, there is something that's going on. I am the one now that needs the help. I'm suffering with PTSD, and so I saw the numbers increase once the realization set in that it's me now. It's me that's standing in the need, and I saw that with the in the hospital setting, but also just with your everyday. People realize that I can't shake this. Something is going on. I'm back to work, or I'm going out more, but I still feel down. I'm depressed. It's maybe sunny outside, but I feel a little dark on the inside. So, and it was just some self-realization is that I need help. And people just reached out, and they were more open. And just at the time, the goal is to just connect and help. And once people realize that it's okay, once they give themselves permission to accept the help, it was better, and the numbers increased.
And I remember reading during the pandemic that, counseling again, there was a lot, you mentioned Zoom. I know there's been like phone counseling, text, there's all different kinds of ways to connect now for people. Did you see that increasing as well during that time in different ways, and that students could get help and assistance?
Yes. The phone, the texting, it's interesting. Students they really don't like to text with those at a certain age level.
Present company excluded, of course.
I'm like, what does that acronym mean? What is that? Hold on, So it's like, okay, we're just going to talk. I'm going to call you, and then we'll go from there. But it was. I saw that more students, they tried to text, but truly, I think because they were used to the quick responses, that's when they said, you know what, I'll go with the phone, because I was open. I'm like, if you want to email, if that's better for you, if you want to text, whatever is best. And I think that the more your client or whomever you're connecting with realize that you are really here to accommodate me because you care. I think it's just, it encourages and it opens up more communication regardless of whatever mode you use.
Well, sadly, it's time for another short break, but you don't want to miss the rest of our show. We're going to really talk about some tips and things that you can do and how you can reach out to others. And we'll be back in just a minute after this break to talk to Cora Garth. Stay tuned.
When life's this hard, it's no wonder 7,000 students drop out every school day. Visit boostup.org and help kids in your community stay in school.
Yo, check out this chef, right? Right? That's so gay. That's really gay. Dude, look at those hands.
Please don't say that.
What?
Don't say that something is gay when you mean that something is dumb or stupid. It's insulting. It's like if I thought this pepper shaker was stupid and I said, man, and this pepper shaker is so 16-year-old boy with a cheesy mustache. Just saying. When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
Hi, I'm Peter. There's nothing I love more than sharing vegetables with my friends. Come on in! Help yourself to anything. That's why we give our food the utmost respect it deserves. Did you know there are simple steps we can all take to help save food? You can cook it, store it, even share it. Just don't waste it. Because when it comes to food, better ache than never. To learn more, visit SaveTheFood.com.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Chris Benson. We're back in the studio with Cora Garth, and she's talking about her experience as a counselor and what we can do to reach out for help, especially for those that might be ourselves who need it or others. Oh, Cora, so we're at the point in the pandemic now where it's almost 2 years at this point that we're filming this show, where we've been dealing with, like you said, deaths, illness, masks, uncertainty, and people have really been going through it. How have you seen the approaches to counseling, or maybe the people coming towards counseling? Have you seen it steady? Are people still coming, or because the cases are down at this point in time, are people like, yeah, I don't need counseling so much now. I don't need to talk about it. What are you seeing?
Well, I would say it's probably a little bit of the latter, where people, at first they were attending sessions very frequently and, just on it, like I'm not missing, I need this. But then as, the CDC guidelines allowed it to be a little bit more lax than, the slack off, but then they would come back maybe about a month or two later and we have to revisit some topics because they were feeling better. But still, the root of those traumas, the root of that anxiety, the root of the trauma, or the post-traumatic stress, PTSD, they will sometimes they lay dormant, but then once you're triggered, where if you see, oh no, we have to wear a mask, or you see someone in a certain type of mask, it's amazing how masks can trigger someone, and then with the various styles, it's amazing. So once you see that, or once someone experienced that, then they're urgent. Can you take me today? Can I see you today? I'm like, it takes a little bit of time. Let me work you back into my schedule. But I do see a slow return, and where they want to pick back up and keep it moving because they saw the benefit of the counseling.
I think something you said is really important, and I just want to uplift it and clarify it. So it's, if you're not familiar, people aren't familiar with counseling, they might think, well, I'm going to go this one time and get fixed, whatever I need fixed. And what I'm getting from what you're saying is that there's a progression that has to happen. It's not where I'm one and done. Talk a little bit about that, about how many sessions might it take if I've got a situation where I'm feeling anxiety. Tell me about that a bit.
Yes, good question. And so if someone is coming in and they are having a crisis moment, well, you may just have not had a good night rest. And so you can call a crisis line that we'll talk about later, and then you may get what you need, where you can de-escalate and say, okay, I'm going to go to bed earlier tonight. I'm going to do a little to-do list, what I'm going to do tomorrow, and I'm going to bed. I'm going to try it again in the morning, and then you wake up fine. That's good. But if you're someone that you've been experiencing this low, this negative, when you're around people, you still feel lonely. You feel like no one cares for you, no one loves you, although people are telling you, I love you, I'm here for you. Those are long-term, when you cannot sit still, when it is peaceful and you feel like, oh, what is about to go on? The shoe is about to fall. What is about, and nothing is going on. Those are red flags to say it's something going on within me and I need to talk to someone. And what you do is you go and you don't, because everyone is different. It's not a 4 or 5 session. It's countless, it's numerous, but the good news is your counselor is there to encourage you and to be honest with you and to support you through whatever you're going through. So that is the good news, that you are not alone, and this is someone that is here for you and you only, and that's it.
What is your number one way, if there was someone watching today who was like, I've never gone and got counseling and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but they really do need it. What would you say, what would one thing you would say to them to convince them to give it a try?
I would say, well, okay, you have been feeling like this, but you're like, yeah, I'm still a little bit antsy. I don't know. I'm not going to do it. Say, well, okay, why not? What is the fear? What why not try? And I tell everyone, I say, just try it one time. And I encourage, if they say, you know, it all depends on the relationship, but I would say, you know, have your spouse to go with you and just sit out in the waiting room, or call your friend on the phone, and just while you're going there, just to encourage you to read up on individuals on YouTube who has said, you know what, I declined counseling, but I'm glad I did take it, you know, because encouragement and support is very powerful. And you're going that one time, and you are, you know, you are interviewing or connecting with the therapist as well. And if it doesn't work, then you try another one. You know, but you don't give up, and you always say, I'm gonna try at least one time, because we can't make you go, but it's beneficial that you try it at least one time.
And I love that you said that you've got to find the right person. Not everybody's a fit for every person. So it may be you're trying it one time and it doesn't quite click. There's definitely another way to try. And I know there's a lot of national organizations. The good news, I would say, from the pandemic is we're talking about mental health a lot more. And if people are out there today and they're struggling, there's a lot of places. What are some of the big national organizations that you would recommend people could look at online that would be helpful?
Oh yes. So the number one that offers counseling of licensed professional counselors, social work, is Psychology Today. And Psychology Today is your one-stop shop. You can go there and search for a counselor, support group, treatment center, and it's by your criteria. So if you would like a female, or you would like a person that is black, or you know, whatever you choose, you can click, 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 and it's your special order counselor, and you receive a listing with their bios, with their informations, where you can email them and talk with them before scheduling a session. If they accept insurance, if they want to do scale, because you may not can afford to pay out of pocket. So it's psychologytoday.com.
Well, Cora, you've given us so much to think about. Thank you for being on the show today.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately, our show has come to an end. We thank you so much for tuning in today, and we are so wanting you to make sure that you check things out online and see what you need and get the help that you need. If someone you know is suffering and does need help right now, please reach out. We want to give you the suicide prevention line. It's 1-800-273-8255. You don't have to suffer alone. Thank you for watching. Thanks for joining us at Celebrate Michigan, and we'll see you here next time.